What's up, everybody? Jeff Sintel, DogNation.com. This is another Wednesday night, and let me let you guys know a little backstory. Last 3 weeks we've had. First of all, welcome everybody. Happy holiday season. How's everybody? Where are you from? First timer? You listening in? You having a great time? Sure hope so. Having a great night so far? Sure hope so. Check it out back there. That is the Sintel family Christmas tree. It is a flocked Christmas tree, and yes, it is not, as my kids would say, somewhat mischievously, the tree is currently naked, Dad. And I am quoting them verbatim. But yeah, we got to get some lights. We got to get all the trimmings on the tree together. Have you guys got your tree up? Do you guys have a naked tree in your den like the Sintels do? That shows you how busy we are these days. But speaking of busy, Georgia, Alabama. I thought it would be interesting to let you guys a little inside baseball here. Like I said, the last 3 weeks we've had home run guests, and we had another home run guest lined up for tonight. Unfortunately, he's not going to be able to make it. So when you learn this stuff, I don't know, 30, 22 minutes, something like that before you go on air, you got to act like a professional. You got to sound prepared. The show must go on. And right now, the show in the state of Georgia, the pulse of consciousness on everybody's mind right now has to be Georgia, Alabama. Round four, in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium coming up on Saturday night. And because of that, I had an article cooking up for later this week. So I'm going to kind of cannibalize some of the best parts of it to kind of go and show you folks the tail of the tape right now between Georgia and Alabama. The first thing that jumps out of everybody's mind, let me show you this right. Let me just bring this up to you this right now. Since 2018, and by and large, except for the Julian Rochesters and the Stetson Bennett's out there, the Amir Speeds, Latavius Brini, some guys like that. Most of the players that will dictate the game on Saturday were signed in 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Quick initial factoid here. I'm gonna try to play some interactive hedges with everybody tonight. First and foremost, let's start with the 5-star category. If you guys had to guess which team has signed more 5-stars over the last 4 years, would it be the hometown and homestanding show favorite Georgia Bulldogs, or would it be the Alabama Crimson Tide? So, quick way to register your vote, guys, online is to just say Georgia, Bama, dogs, Bama. You can give me an emoji of an elephant. You can give me an emoji of a dog. Any way you want to do that will be acceptable. But I think it's really interesting to jump into this because if you look at it, both of these teams have kind of recruited like gangbusters, but on the opposite sides. Why do I say that? Well, because Georgia signed an industry record 7 5-star prospects in 2018. Very impressive. And yet Alabama matched that in 2021 with 7 5-star signees of their own. So they're kind of bookended right there a little bit. But to answer everyone's question, to kind of keep this show moving, Georgia has signed 20 5-stars over the past 4 cycles. And that's not even counting a transfer like Darion Kendrick, a transfer like Arik Gilbert. Georgia has signed 20. And the number for Alabama over these last 4 cycles is actually 16. So, guys, if you're thinking, it seems like Georgia's more talented, especially in the junior, senior, super senior levels. Well, that's exactly right. Georgia has signed more talent, and it's got older, more established talent too. Of course, those numbers are sort of skewed because there's guys like Adam Anderson, for instance, who was a 5-star in 2018. There's not going to be on the field or a part of the game plan whatsoever. But I think that's very interesting when you have these two schools that are recruiting at the highest level. Let me give you a quick nugget right here. Georgia's class, I think, will go down in history. The 2018 class, that was the first number 1 class where they wrestled the title away from, wrestled the belt away from Alabama. Here's what's intriguing about that. Remember names like Otis Reese and, lots of them come to mind. Otis Reese, Luke Ford, Cade Mays, a lot of Georgia's, Brenton Cox, a lot of Georgia's premier talent off that 2018 class is gone. They didn't spend more than 1 season, more than 2 seasons, or in a lot of cases, 1 season in Athens playing for the Bulldogs. And yet, what Georgia has done is it's the first case where they've really developed a lot of talent. You want to look at names like Jordan Davis, for example. That's the poster child for development at Georgia for maybe all time, along with Eric Stokes. But what they've done is there are a lot of guys, they're finally utilizing a guy like Quay Walker, maximizing a guy like Quay Walker and Channing Tindall. And these guys are senior 4-year Bulldogs that are really flapping their wings and really performing. Conversely, you can say the same thing about Alabama. A lot of their guys, you can go check out a lot of their 5 stars, Antonio Alfano, some of their big defensive ends, some of their 5 stars. They're no longer with the program either. It's kind of the culture of both of those teams that the Georgia way and the Alabama process just kind of weeds out some of those folks that just can't cut it. And yet you still have these schools operating at a very high level. Second point I want to make 2 quick points about the recruiting tail of the tape between Georgia and Alabama. The second one, and I want you guys to get interactive with me as well. We've got so many schools that vie for the recruiting championship every year. And really, by and large, it comes down to Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State's in there a little bit. And by and large, that's it. Those are the 3 schools kind of jockeying most years since 2017, 2018 for the recruiting national championship. Now, LSU's in there a little bit, but I find it very intriguing. What does everybody want to think? Again, register votes with an emoji or the word dogs or Bama, whatever you want to do. Which school do you think has had, on the average, the higher rated recruiting classes over the past 4 cycles? Can't wait to see your answers on that. In fact, I'll jump on YouTube right now and also Facebook right now to see what you guys are sniffing and see if you guys have a good idea of what we're talking about. And also Facebook right now to see what you got. See lots of guys on YouTube as well. I see Brandon Lesko. I see Kirby's Visor. I see Jordan Bowman representing a different fan base, just a drunk Clemson fan, he says. But, which school do you think has piled on the more higher rated recruiting classes on the average? While you guys are jockeying, while you guys are looking at that, I want to quickly share that with you. So in 2018, Georgia finished 1st overall in recruiting. That was their first breakthrough year. Consequently, Alabama actually finished 5th. That was one of those years where Nick Saban was bested on the recruiting trail and dusted pretty considerably by Kirby Smart. And he really rearranged his whole staff to bring in a lot more effective recruiters. Now you move to 2018, Georgia was 2nd, Alabama was 1st. Show you how close these guys are. In 2020, Georgia was 1st, Alabama was 2nd in 2020. And then this past recruiting cycle, 2021, Georgia was 4th, largely because they only signed 20 guys. They wanted to save a lot of room for the portal. And Alabama was 1st. So listen to how close this is, guys. On the average, Georgia's last 4 cycles, the average recruiting finish for its program was 2.0. So that was number 2 on the average. Pretty impressive stuff here. You run those same numbers through the calculator and compute it out and spit it out for Alabama. That number is 2.25. Alabama had an average ranking of 2.25. Is there really any wonder why these 2 schools for the most of this year have by and large been the de facto number 1 and number 2 teams in the country? Recruiting and everything that goes into it certainly pays a dividend here. When you get the best players, you hear Kirby Smart say that a lot. Really, the foundation of being successful in college football is getting the best players. And right now on Saturday, you have a matchup of 2 schools that have, simply put, been getting the best players with the best recruiting. There you have it. That's a quick little in the box look at how these 2 schools shape up. These schools that went back and forth. Everybody's mentioned the Will Anderson story. We wrote about that on Dog Nation. Georgia prioritized Mikhail Sherman. He was brilliant, especially in his junior season. He was a higher rated prospect, higher rated than both B.J. Ojulari and Will Anderson out of Dutchtown High in Metro Atlanta. Georgia didn't really go after Will Anderson, didn't offer until very, very late when the film was just that evident. But you got to remember, Georgia at that time had Jermaine Johnson, Azeez Ojulari, Robert Beal, Nolan Smith, and Adam Anderson. They only had room for one outside linebacker for the Wolfpack room, and they thought they had the right one. They thought they had the best one and Mikhail Sherman. You guys have heard me say this story before. Mikhail Sherman was at the Nike opening finals before his junior year. He's about a 215, 219 pound backer. And he made the fastest man heats, the fastest man finals, because he was clocking laser 40-yard dashes in the 4.5 range. That's why Georgia went all in and secured an early commitment from Mikhail Sherman. And they didn't have to go looking for a B.J. Ojulari or Will Anderson. That's why Will Anderson is in Alabama. You've got Georgia and Quay Walker. Quay Walker was actually committed to Alabama. The whole world thought maybe he was going to flip to Tennessee. He actually flipped to Georgia. You got lots of battles back and forth. Nolan Smith was a guy that both schools wanted. Adam Anderson was a guy that both schools wanted. Going back and forth. That's what you have right now. You guys can hear. We've got some Centel family members coming into the production studio, so to speak, grabbing some ice and everything else like that in the kitchen. What am I going to do about that? Am I going to kick them out of the studio? What do you think I should do about that? Even Peaches is being quiet right now, for goodness sakes. Some big news to share. I don't know if you've noticed it across your social media feeds, but Notre Dame, in a very quick move, reports are saying Notre Dame looks to have elevated their defensive coordinator, Marcus Freeman, from the defensive coordinator to the head coaching position. Notre Dame is apt to fill their head coaching position internally with their defensive coordinator. Very big news. And what this really will do, I think, is it will give the Irish a chance to hold on to the majority of their 2022 and 2023 recruiting classes. Both of those have stacked up so well. So really, this is a big retention hire for Notre Dame and what they're doing there. And I know a lot of 2023s, a guy like A.J. Harris in particular, he will be very, very pleased to hear that the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have retained Marcus Freeman as their head coach. And folks, quick rise for Marcus Freeman. He was the defensive coordinator just a year ago for Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl that faced Georgia. He got promotion. He took the Notre Dame defensive coordinator job. Most in the industry thought he was on the fast track to becoming a head coach, and certainly was. Talladega, Daytona Super Speedway fast. He's all of a sudden got one of the plum jobs, easily one of the top 6 or 7 jobs in college football. Very interesting news there, kind of breaking right before we went on the streams tonight. Third thing I want to show you, in kind of my 3 things before we get the show rolling with our normal features, is the third thing I want to show you is what I thought was a pretty cool commitment ceremony. And that I'm talking about the one yesterday, about 4:00 or so, from Jaquez McElderry out of Anniston, Alabama. He's a 3-star offensive lineman. Grew up a Bama fan, chose Georgia. Really, it's one of those things where I've talked to him a couple times, and I thought to myself, if I write this story right now with everything this young man said to me, everybody's going to know where he's going. That's one of those things where I kind of just decided to hold back on a lot of that good information he was telling me, even when I was trying to, package it in a certain way, because he certainly sounded like a Georgia Bulldog every time I talked to him. And it was only a matter of time when he made his decision. Had a late offer and late interest from Alabama. He visited Alabama and Auburn in back-to-back weeks, was there for the Iron Bowl. But that's the backstory. That's the prologue. I want to show you this video. I think it's about a minute and a half. I don't know how tight we cut the package, but it's about a minute and a half. And this is him in Anniston High School. Anniston is really right outside Oxford. It's about an hour away from Metro Atlanta, which makes it probably about 2 hours away from Athens, Georgia. But Jaquez McElderry visited Georgia in June, came back for 2 home games, got the offer in early June, and really was just smitten with Georgia. Matt Luke, assistant offensive line coach Eddie Gordon. But I want you to watch this, because watch it, and we're going to try to play it right now for you, and we'll come right back, and I'll kind of share with you some of those Easter eggs from the decision.
I want to thank everybody for coming today, showing a lot of support and love. My loved ones, my family members, my teammates, coaches, friends, family. I want to thank White Coach Bob. They've been with me this whole recruiting process, helping me get offers and scholarships in my 9th grade year. So I owe it all to them. So I want to say thank y'all. I want to thank my advisors, my teachers. All of them pushed me to being the best student and athlete that I can as possible. I want to thank all the schools that giving me an opportunity to come play at the next level at that school. Whew. Man, Jesus Christ. Man, I'd like to give a big shout out to this person right here who recorded. Been getting out my film, just like Coach Ball, Camp on videos, everything, the other schools and stuff. Big shout out to Ground Level, my trainer, who been training me ever since I've been coming into my ninth grade year. So, with that being said, for the next 3 to 4 years, I will be attending the University of.
All right, now how novel was that, folks? First of all, I don't know if you noticed this, but this young man was like, "Hats, we don't need no stinking hats." What he did was is he replaced the hats with kind of bottles, athletic sport bottles, the ones you squeeze, the squeegee bottles or whatever, and they were the logos of all six of his schools. I think he had Ole Miss, he had South Carolina, he had Kentucky, he had Tennessee, he had Georgia, he had Alabama on there, and all the water bottles were filled with water except for one. And what he did is you saw him trolling from the jump. I don't know if this will get as much traction as Quay Walker in his hat, but he starts out in an Alabama hoodie of all things, and he goes to his announcement, and then he reaches for the Alabama squeegee bottle and starts drinking it, and then he throws it down. The crowd goes wild. He's playing to the theater, and then he picks up the Georgia bottle and drinks from that. So he was definitely drinking the Georgia Powerade, not Kool-Aid, Powerade. I think we can say that because that is a Kroger sponsored product. You can get that stuff at your local neighborhood Kroger. But that was the only one that had Powerade in it. He sipped on that Powerade. He was instantly became a bulldog. He pulls off his um, Alabama hoodie sweatshirt, and all of a sudden you have one of the serious. He's going to wear number 55 for Georgia, Cinco Cinco. You have one of the serious road grader candidates for Georgia in the 2023 cycle. He's about 6'4". He's about 325 pounds. Very hard worker. Very interesting. I was also talking to another 2023 prospect out of the state of Alabama, a guy named Kelby Collins, a guy that Georgia is really prioritizing in the 2023 cycle. Some of those times when I start cracking together and putting together the top targets list for 2023, I always remind myself that I probably need to have Kelby Collins on there. And if that feature went to about 15 names, he probably would be on there. But Kelby told me that's it. That's a guy that could be my potential teammate. That's a guy that's leaving the state of Alabama that he takes notice of. A very impactful decision because those two guys grew up playing against each other in Pee Wees and Little League and rec ball and middle school ball. And that's an example. Kelby kind of articulated that it is hard to leave the state of Alabama, especially when schools like Alabama and Auburn both want him. But when he sees other peers, other talented peers like Raquez doing that, he certainly feels a little bit more inclined to think about doing the same with his process as well. Guys, that is a good opening leg for here on Before the Hedges. Before the Hedges is brought to you by Kroger. That's the place where you guys can get all your great groceries, can get all your stuff. And it's also a place now when you can see somebody and Chef John talking about making some hot wings in front of a trusty grill near you. Let's check that spot out from Kroger right now. See, that's what's called a tease. That's what's called a tease. I got sources. Got sources. The streets are buzzing. They're telling me make the people wait a little bit longer for that Kroger video with Jeff and Chef John. So we'll do something just like that. Another thing to keep in mind, you guys, we were looking at a bunch of things. over the last couple of days. It's interesting to notice. This has kind of been the season where Georgia's kind of steadfast recruiting targets have been able to have to eschew. Funny to use that word here on Before the Hedges tonight. They've been able to eschew some of the rumors going around, like Ja'Cory Thomas. You'll see a tweet from him later on about how Ja'Cory is saying he's 1,000% dog. There's actually some recruiting pages on social media and Instagram that said that Oscar Delp was looking at taking a trip to South Carolina, checking out other schools. Erroneous. I'm going to use my Owen Wilson, Vince Vaughn voice right there from Wedding Crashers. Erroneous. He says he's 1,000% dog. That's another guy that's having to refute a lot of things. And then also really earlier this evening, right before he went on air, about maybe an hour and a half before he went on air, there was a tweet from Kamari Wilson that said a big announcement was coming from Kamari Wilson in the class of 2022. And you guys know by now, that's the number one target on Georgia's board in the class of 2022, Kamari Wilson, the 5-star safety, the nation's number one safety. That is in a recruiting process that Georgia has been in for the longest time. Will the Dogs be able to close it out? Will Kamari Wilson finally be ready to make his decision known? That's the stuff that everybody's thinking about right now. Who else is in it? He's been talking about taking official visits, a couple more official visits to other schools. What will Kamari Wilson do? Is he on commitment watch? That's something to pay a lot of attention to now as things get closer, because Kamari is going to be an early enrollee and play for some lucky school. Sign on signing day, enroll in January after his time in the Under Armour All-American game as well. Couple of things to think about right there. Nice little tidbit there on Kamari Wilson. If you thought that was juicy, take a listen to this from Kroger Chef John about some tasty wings.
All right, Dog Nation, I've got Chef John here with Kroger. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take that tailgate to national championship standards. Chef John, we got some 3-star wing recipes. How do we take it to the next level?
Jeff, you've heard of buffalo wings, you've heard of barbecue wings. We're gonna take these to the next level. What we're gonna do is an orange garlic glazed wing.
All right, John, now normally my friends do not allow the color orange at the tailgate. Trusting you, man.
You're gonna love these. We're gonna get grilling right now. This is a garlic orange glazed wing. Made in marinade last night. It's with orange juice, brown sugar, garlic, salt and pepper, a little bit of butter, and some hot sauce. Absolutely fantastic. So I didn't bring my own container in the marinade. I brought it in a Ziploc bag. Why? So I don't have to worry about washing, but also it's quick and easy to dispose of it and nice and clean and sanitary. Wings hot off the grill.
All right, guys, been hearing some good intel about this one. You know what, dog fans? This is the type of orange you want at your tailgate. Dog Nation, you just got a 5-star upgrade to your tailgate menu. Check out dognation.com all season long for tailgate tips and recipes, brought to you by Kroger.
All right, guys, you heard that funky intro, that funky jam at the end of it. That's a good way to bumper. We're going to ride into a quick promo. Guys, this is our last Dog Nation partnership weekend game with Score Atlanta, Peachtree TV. Of course, my good friends Brandon Adams and Rusty Manziel are in the booth. I'm part of the pregame, halftime, and postgame show with the Kroger big game, the Kroger big game ball. This Friday night, we're gonna have Milton versus Walton. Walton will be at Milton. Lots of players on the Milton sideline that Georgia has interest in, chiefly LT Levius, LT Overton. Also, Bruce Thornton's son, a legacy Bulldog, heck of a defensive back in the 2023 class as well. At Milton, should be a great game. Milton's still rated by MaxPreps.com as one of the top 20 prospects and top 20 teams, in the land for the 2021 season nationally. That will go down live on Peachtree TV off the CBS 46 app at 8 p.m. on Friday night. Check your local listings. Check your local streaming listings to get in all of that. I want to catch a couple of questions from. That I saw pop up. Folks, I don't think anybody should worry about the 3-star thing. Automatically, when Georgia's extended a committable offer to a 3-star prospect, dude's not a 3-star. I think Shone Washington is a great example. I don't know if any of you any of you good people saw. There was a tweet recently by one of the is actually one of the trainers, Edge Assassins, that works with Shone Washington, and it was a side by side of Shone Washington next to Big Bear Alexander. Bear's probably about 6'3", barely scraping at 6'3", about 320 pounds. Shone Washington is actually about 6'5", 6'4" and some change, and on the high side of 6'4", almost 6'5", and he's about 295 pounds right now. Certainly a big, large man. I think the misconception on Shone Washington is that he's going to be zero tech, soaking up blocks like Jordan Davis. That's not the case. Georgia really values him as a 3-tech. Really, that's where his game kind of fits in. Another guy that can stop the run, can knife into the backfield. Again, one of the things I wrote in my story, I don't know how many people know this, how many people are aware of this, but there's a couple of guys. Remember what A.D. Mitchell did? A.D. Mitchell was a little bit different in how he was a senior in 2019, reclassified from the 2020 cycle to the 2021 cycle, and just spent the fall of 2020 working on his body, working on his game, speed training, weight training, getting himself right. So when he showed up in January of 2021, he was ready to go. That's what Jacob Hood is doing. He's taken his senior season off to just focus on his grades, also focus on his training, also focus on his work. Same thing that's happening with Shone Washington for him to be able to graduate early and report to Georgia in January of 2021. That's kind of a common thread you see there from all those three guys. It's becoming more of a thing now than ever before, especially in the days with folks coming out of the pandemic, so to speak. Guys, so I hear it. It's just in my head. It means, Jeff, we got to give the people an updated top targets list because Shone Washington is no longer on the list. Let's take a look at that right now. A new good look at what the top targets look like, and they are shrinking. Certainly, folks, they are shrinking in the 2021 in December of 2021 for the class of 2022. Did some shuffling a little bit. Let me see. Pulling it up. Only got 9 names. This is version, probably should say 12.2, but the 2022 top targets, you've got Hero Kanu, Santa Margarita Catholic. Hero is dropping. That's just because I hear things are trending away from the Georgia Bulldogs right now with Hero Kanu. They're trending towards another school. Shamar Stewart, again, that's a guy, we speak his name a lot. Shamar is very likely going to take his decision all the way out to the old school national signing day in February. Texas A&M looms as the team to beat there. Georgia, according to reports, you started to hear reports that Marvin Jones Jr., who was, if you're doing some Sherlocking off social media and some comments made by Marvin's mother, he was a silent commitment to Oklahoma to play for Lincoln Riley, and now that certainly feels not to be the case anymore. His recruitment kind of opens up a little bit. Will it be Florida State? Will it be a school like Georgia jumping in there? Georgia is scheduled to get his last official visit on December the 10th. Georgia, we're hearing, is trying to get in home and go in home with Marvin Jones Jr. this Thursday prior to the SEC championship game. So that certainly shows that young man's value. The new startup service that's doing a very good job, in my opinion, on 3 recruits, on 3 sports, on 3 recruits, actually has Marvin Jones as the #1 overall prospect in the country for the class of 2022. Another name to think about there, Demario Tolan. Gets really interesting now with Brian Kelly at LSU because he still remained committed to LSU even through the coaching changes, giving Georgia a very seriously hard look. Look for him to make his decision on early signing day as well. Number 5, Marquarius Squirrel White. Squirrel just keeps surviving. He's playing on Friday night in the Alabama 6A state championship for his Clay Chalkville High School team. Really, that decision took a recent visit to Alabama. Loved it. That was his official visit. Now EG3 reportedly is going to go back to Alabama, spend some more time in Tuscaloosa this coming week to see how much that fit is with the Crimson Tide there. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Ryan Day actually visited, the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes, actually visited Ernest Green III this week. And it's kind of funny because Georgia's not doing this stuff right now. But a lot of these schools, you see a lot of these big name coaches going in home again, folks. And I tell you what, for a guy that does this for a living, and I want to know your opinion, does it kind of warm your heart a little bit to see in-home visits again, folks? We hadn't had in-home visits with recruiting in a long time, since January of 2020, a very long time since we had in-home visits. Of course, there were no in-home visits a year ago. Nobody went in-home over the fall or over the summer in June. To see these coaches again in homes again with in-home visits, it's kind of a return, more of a return to normalcy within the recruiting cycle, the old school recruiting cycle. Another name, former Florida commitment, Shamar James. Not thinking about the Gators at all. It's really Georgia and Alabama. That's a decision that I think will go down to early signing day as well. Shamar James out of Faith Academy in Mobile, Alabama. Another brilliant linebacker with some incredible senior film. That one is also going down between Georgia and Bama. Another name, Christian Miller. You guys had the joy, the treat of visiting here with Christian Miller live on our Before the Hedges show a week ago. Seems like Bama, Georgia again, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State's in the mix there as well. Christian Miller sounds like he's going to give an official visit to Bama. Again, folks, everybody, it seems like in the industry gets this wrong, but he is going to make his commitment only on January the 8th in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl. He's going to sign in February. He's not going to do anything during the early period. He's not going to enroll early. That's why Christian Miller will be another name to track and monitor along with Shamar Stewart, even after he makes his commitment known to one of those three schools, most likely on January the 8th. And then the name we've mentioned a bunch of times, Kamari Wilson. That's really not a Georgia-Alabama battle there. Georgia has had a really strong hold on a good shot with Kamari Wilson for quite some time. We've reported on DogNation.com that everybody, some of the key core commitments in the Georgia class feel that Kamari Wilson is a dog. He just doesn't want to tell the world yet. He knows he's a dog. I've heard that reported. I've reported that on DogNation.com. He's just waiting it out. He's just not ready to let the world know yet. Be very interesting if that turns out to be the case with Kamari Wilson. Some other names to know: you got Travis Hunter, you got Nigel Kelly, Shaz Preston, Dayon Walker, big defensive tackle who also took an official visit for the Charleston Southern game. Thomas Castellanos, another local product out of Ware County, Waycross, Georgia as well. And folks, the number's 24 right now. I think Georgia will take all these names you see right here. I think Georgia will probably try to sign about 4 to 5 of these names, and then kind of save some scholarships back for transfer portal stuff. Let's take a look at some declared timelines for UGA targets. There's another one to add, but we'll have to add this because this happened really late tonight before we got all of our graphics cooked up in production. But Hero Canoe, January the 8th. These are declared timelines for UGA targets. January the 8th for Christian Miller, January 11th, 2022 for 5-star junior cornerback A.J. Harris. You have a lot of guys that are likely could make their decision within the next week, and then also leading up to the early signing period date, December the 15th. That fun Wednesday in December when everybody's recruiting class, by and large, about 90% of the recruiting industry will sign. Let's take a quick look at the snapshot for the 2022 recruiting breakdown. You've got 24 commits. You've got Georgia still holds the nation's #1 class. Again, folks, this is a defensive heavy class. This is a refill the cupboards class for the defense. 10 guys on offense, 13 on defense. Now the commitment of Sean Washington makes it 12 to 12. Georgia currently has 3 5-star commits. 2 of those, there was some news today. Malachi Starks, Mikael Williams, and then also Jalen Walker. They were named semifinalists for the Maxwell Player of the Year Award, the Maxwell Adidas High School Player of the Year Award. Georgia has 6 commitments in the top 50. Continuing to see that skew of Georgia's 12 highest rated commitments in this 2022 class. 9 of them are going to play the defensive side of the ball. Let me run to show you this. Let's talk about the top targets in the class of 2023. Kind of want to roll through this a little bit. Makari Vickers, that's a name very close to Terrion Arnold. That was an Alabama win and a kind of a head-to-head, quasi-head-to-head with Georgia a year ago. Santana Fleming, big-time wide receiver. Trayon Webb recently decommits from Oklahoma. The Lincoln Riley news there allows him to make a decommitment. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with Brandon Ennis, his very talented buddy out of the state of Florida as well. Brandon Ennis is the #1 overall wide receiver in the class of 2023 out of American Heritage. One of the names I want to get to, let me see. I've got a different grid to make sure I show you guys. Top targets, Trayon Webb, Santana Fleming, number 9, Tony Mitchell, number 8, Reuben Owens, number 7, Justice Haynes. Folks, Justice Haynes is stacking up the numbers. I think he's at 6,000 career rushing yards right now, already in the top 25, 30 overall high school all-time career rushers. Number 6, Levius Overton. Number 5, Arch Manning. Number 4, A.J. Harris. A.J. Harris continues to drift out of that number 1 spot now in my mind. Number 3, folks, and I'm amiss for not having this guy's name up there a lot, especially a lot sooner. Let me tell you a quick story about Caden McDonald. The last 3 games of his junior season, he had 3 sacks, 7 sacks, and 2 sacks. He had 12 out of his 18 and a half sacks, I believe, in the last 3 or 4 games. He is a nose guard, guys. A brilliant nose guard. Georgia still leads, obviously. Ohio State is in that mix there for him as well. Caden McDonald is about 6'4". He's about 329 pounds. Maybe he's about 6'3", almost 6'4", 329 pounds. Folks, I've never, ever, 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 never seen a high school defensive tackle, a true nose guard. They move him around a little bit because he's just so hard to block. He had 7 sacks in the second round of the playoffs. And then Caden McDonald, the very next week of the high school state playoffs, caught a touchdown pass on kind of a swing route out of the backfield from a fullback, an H-back type look. Folks, these are unfathomable things for a defensive lineman, an All-American defensive lineman type in high school. That's why Caden McDonald is now number 3 on this list. Number 2 on this list is Jonel Aguero out of IMG Academy. No longer at IMG Academy. He's now moved back home to the Boston, Massachusetts metro area. And the number 1 5-star edge, Malik Bryant, he is at IMG Academy. Most important restock positions for Georgia in this cycle would be offensive tackle, wide receiver, running back, cornerback, and outside linebacker. Folks, there you go. That is a good look at all things, our weekly staples about, kind of if you guys want to like to read the ticker, read the stock market about what's going on. We try to capsulize a lot of that data for how Georgia is faring on the recruiting trail really quickly, really concisely, and efficiently with all that. Couple of things to get to here. I want to show you lots of chatter to get through this week. I could have had a lot of chatter, but what I want to do is let's take them one by one. Suntarian Perkins, I want to call for this one right now. A guy that I was extremely high on. It was really down to Ole Miss and Georgia. Let's see how long this sits. Suntarian Perkins was number 3. That's a young man that lives in a house of 15, a 3-bedroom house of 15 in rural Mississippi. Top 70 overall player, one of the nation's top athletes, was down to Ole Miss and Georgia. He chose Ole Miss over the last week. Huge commitment there for Lane Kiffin's program. Suntarian Perkins has committed in the 2023 cycle to Ole Miss. Next one I want to show you is Pierce Sperling III, PS3. Quick shorthand for him. Look at this, guys. These are some staggering junior numbers for a tight end. I believe he has 17 touchdowns. He has 74 catches. Just some really thrilling stuff. He averages about 19 yards per catch. And 28% of those catches were scored for touchdowns. 28% of those 74 catches went for 21 touchdowns. That's 1,404 yards for Pierce Sperling, a legacy Georgia commit in that 2023 cycle. Very interesting to see there, especially that prolific numbers right there. We talked about this is a time of year when a lot of Georgia commits are kind of shooting down rumors about them looking elsewhere. Here was interest in Ja'Cory Thomas, the kind of really remarkable Swiss Army, very versatile, physical safety prospect for Georgia in the 2022 class, committed. Ja'Cory Thomas saying he's 1,000% dog. I want to show you the edit here from Shone Washington. That's where Shone Washington, they call him Gorilla. Get this, guys. This Georgia 2022 defensive line class will have a young man that's named Rilla, short for Gorilla, and Bear on both of the defensive tackle slots. And for the front, they'll have a Bear and they'll have a Gorilla. Very interesting there. I want to show you this. This is what happens when a recruit a 5-star recruit, Jaden Wayne, shows true interest in Georgia. He took an unofficial visit from Washington cross country. Actually knows Keely Ringo fairly well. Keely is actually originally from that Tacoma, Washington area. He took an unofficial visit to Georgia for Charleston Southern, showed Georgia he's really interested in, and look at the love and look at the mail he's starting to get from Georgia, reciprocating that interest. We mentioned Trayon Webb earlier. This is his decommitment tweet from Oklahoma. Again, Georgia, he was a former Georgia commitment. He committed to Georgia back in the Missouri game of 2019. He decommitted from Georgia to choose Oklahoma, and now Oklahoma's unraveling. What happens there will be very interesting to see that. And this is some news that just dropped probably about an hour or two ago. This is Raylan Wilson. This is a linebacker who's got some serious speed, track guy, run linebacker guy in the class of 2023. He is named a Final Two with a decision date coming up on December the 8th. That is 1 week away. Can you believe it? 1 week away, December the 8th. He's got a Final Two of Georgia and Michigan. Georgia had a very impactful, strong visit, unofficial game visit earlier this year. Folks, that's your online chatter. SEC Championship Game Edition. Let me do this. Getting close to that 9 o'clock hour. I want to do this. You guys got any questions? You got anything to do? Now is the time to drop them. I'm going to answer at least the first 5 questions I see right now. Reformation Logistics, that's right. From North Gwinnett and from where he's at in Swanee. Excuse me. Not that far away. Reformation Logistics, yeah, I'll be at Marlowe's tomorrow. Who's going to be at Marlowe's tomorrow? That'd be fun to see for sure. I got some people asking me about John Adams. Terrion Arnold does not play a whole lot this year. Really, the freshman 5-star that DB that's getting a lot of run right now for Alabama is actually JaQuincy Kool-Aid McKinstry. That guy is right there. Let me see. Funny how I got some questions about thanks to everybody for showing up, but got some Clark Kent things. Everybody's asking about the hair. I appreciate the comments about the hair, folks. There's nothing in the hair. I probably took a shower about 30 minutes just to get ready to go before my show tonight. That is literally just a wet head and just brush it. There's no product in there, nothing going on with that swirl whatsoever. Let me see. Reformation Logistics has a question about Bobo. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting what happens with Bobo. Let's say Ernest Green III peels off from the class in Georgia where he decides to go elsewhere. Mike Bobo, his father, Drew Bobo, was not retained. Be very interested to see what Georgia does with that best player available spot in the 2022 class. Jeff D has a question. You know what? Cochran has kind of got that role. I see Cochran. He has actually made mostly the last 4 or 5 road trips. He was at Georgia Tech. He was at Florida. He was at Tennessee. So he is traveling with the team. Folks, I cannot stress how great Will Muschamp has been for Georgia with his recruiting so far this year. That Will Muschamp was a guy that was really very instrumental in the recruitment of Julian Humphrey, to say the least. Foster Moss, I still, people are going to throw stuff out there, what they will. Everybody's going to report secret trips that Travis Hunter might be making to Athens or he might not be making. I'm just going to be very surprised if he ends up anywhere but Florida State. This seems like a guy to me that really wants to be a Seminole. And I will say this right now that if it goes down and Georgia pulls this one, that would certainly be one of the bigger it would be the biggest flip in my time of covering Georgia recruiting, where Georgia came out of nowhere and just went bonkers to pull in a guy that they weren't gonna get. Everybody's talking about Manning on the timeline right there on the live chat. Hope everybody is, that's one of those things where sometimes Georgia's just got it rolling. And you see Texas kind of wilting. You see other schools falling apart. You see Clemson offering other guys in the 2023 class now. Georgia is a strong contender there for Arch Manning, and I know everybody will be fine with that. Bailey Robinson, very strong, impactful things is what Christian Miller had to say last week. I think it's Ohio State. I really think it's Ohio State, Georgia. Alabama's kind of creeping in that thing, coming on a little bit, but one of the things that always becomes very crystal clear to me is how much he wants to play with Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams is already committed to Georgia. There was a time if somebody asked Christian Miller when he was younger, much younger, when he first moved to Georgia, what would be the dream? And I think the dream would be to play for Georgia, especially the way he talks about the relationships he has with Coach Coop. I don't know if you guys saw the piece I did this week. I like to try to come at it with different angles. I've been covering recruiting for now like 5-6 seasons now. I wrote something about Georgia's new first-year recruiting director. I'm going to tell you, when Coach Coop's name came up with Christian Miller, that was the look he gave me. He just gave me that. Great relationship Georgia has there with not only Travion Scott and Christian Miller, but also Coach David Cooper there as well. Let me see. Catching through a few things. Let me go to Facebook. Let me see what I can do for Facebook. You guys keep the question popping. Hey, you guys, let's have fun this last part of this show. Who has a prediction for the game? For me, I'll start it off. I think the game to me, and you guys will laugh because the guys on the show, guys on the team like to kid me a lot about, the picks we make, folks. I spend a lot of my time covering recruiting, trying to be a great father figure and a great husband in my family, not doing all these bet and spread lines like everybody else does. I have this thing with making my picks. Usually it works out very well, where if I'm spending more than a minute breaking down a game, then I'm usually not spending my time the way I need to. But I see this being something like a 27-17 type game, a 28-17 type game. I think the number will likely go over. Will go over just because every time I pick an over this year, it usually goes the opposite of my gut with Georgia football right now. But I think the magic number for Georgia to get to is 30. And I think if Georgia gets over 30, they'll be in great shape on Saturday. Running the ball, I just don't think Alabama can run the ball against Georgia. And that's going to make Bryce Young have to really carry the team on his legs. And I think Georgia's got the dudes, got the wolves, and got the pieces to go chase him down a lot. Also, the fact that you've got Alabama's defensive backs, running back position depleted. I wouldn't worry too much about that. The thing that I think will put some fear factor into Georgia folks a little bit is the team you saw against Auburn, not the same time Alabama team you saw against Auburn. They're going to bring their number one receiver in. He's going to be a future number one pick, and that dynamically changes their scoring ability in the passing game on offense. Something to think about there. A lot of big games this weekend. Of course, that one's the biggest. Who's going to be joining us at Marlowe's? I want to know that. Who's also going to be at the SEC Championship tailgate, the Dog Nation tailgate in that Home Depot backyard on Saturday. Looking forward to seeing a lot of you folks, you good folks there as well. We just went through the whole show. We went through all of our top targets. I'm going to give you guys 4 names. 4 names. Excuse me. I'm going to give you guys 4 names. The stipulation is 3 of them have to come from the top targets list. One of them, let me just save time here. I know everybody wants Travis Hunter. You cannot name Travis Hunter as the amazing, mercurial, magical flip for the early signing period. Can't name Travis Hunter, but give me the 4 names that you would like to see Georgia close with. I will be very interested to see the answers. The way I would rate it, I would say the 4 names Georgia needs to have is I would go, let me make sure I get this right. True to my list, you're going to be like, Jeff, it better be the list. I think Georgia needs to finish out with Kamari, Christian Miller, Shamar James, and Squirrel White. I think that's the ones they got to get. I think those are the ones they got to get to close out the class. That's probably why they're rated in that way, in that manner. That would be a great close in my mind's eye for the remainder of Georgia's recruiting cycle. Let me take a quick lap around Facebook, make sure Facebook folks get a chance to talk to you guys. Got to pick for the most important player in the game on Saturday. I'd be very interesting to what everybody has to say on that front. If you had to throw out a most important player for Georgia on Saturday, I think for me that guy, if I think it's Bowers really. If they can guard Bowers, that basically takes a lot out of the spice out of the Georgia's offense. If they can neutralize him, would Georgia be able to feed Darnell Washington? That's what I think would be the nice wrinkle if Alabama has to devote a lot of its playmaker resources to hemming in and holding back Brock Bowers. I think that's where Darnell Washington can go bonkers. I think Georgia's tight ends, if you look largely where all their great offensive production has been, it's when they have tight ends on the field, multiple tight ends on the field. Also Ladd McConkey as well. What a great find he has been for Georgia to kind of spark this offense as well. Everybody's got hopes and dreams for what George Pickens will contribute. Let's see what he can amount to on on Saturday night as well. Let me see, get to Facebook right now. Good suggestion there from Stephen Battle. He says Nolan Smith. Daniel Luke Standridge has a question. Who do I think Georgia would play in the national championship? I'll take that one on. I think Georgia will eventually play the Big Ten champion. I think that would probably be Michigan. Timothy Wilson picks Bennett. Let me see. Jamari Salyer would have to be one of the MVP candidates I would be suspecting as well. Jamari is going to be crucial in trying to block Will Anderson. What I would do is I would move Will Anderson all over the front so he's not just totally matched up on Jamari. But if that's the case, I feel very strong that Warren McClendon can get that done as well on the other side. Channing Tindall, that's a good pick there as well. Kevin Flute, hope I got that right. Shamar Stewart, Kamari Wilson, Christian Miller, and Macquarius White. Interesting to bring in Shamar Stewart, Kevin. Sounds like you'd really like Georgia to close out with that. Marshall Fleming has a comment about Bama's own line on Facebook. Thinks Georgia could win by 40 points if they press. Georgia will not. Predicts a 31-6 game. Question from Hugh Nash. Do I think Trayvon Nolan or Lewis Seen will pull a Jordan Davis in return for their senior year? I actually think a couple of those guys could pull a Jordan Davis in return for their senior year. I think Nolan is such a great team guy, a great part of this team. I think he could really be a guy that comes back. You can tell how much he really bleeds and lives for Georgia. I don't know if he's going to be a first or second rounder unless he closes really strong. I know he will combine test extremely well. And I could see Lewis Seen coming back for another year as well, simply because you don't see a lot of guys his size. He's still only about 205 pounds, 200 pounds, even though he's pretty tall, very physical. You wonder about what he's going to be in the NFL. Is he going to be that? Is he going to evolve into a linebacker? Going to have to put on a lot of weight to be a linebacker in the NFL. But most safeties in the NFL, they're about 208 pounds, 210 pounds. Lewis is a guy that is a great striker. For him to go probably where I think he needs to go in the draft, maybe another year of polishing would do him justice. But Lewis is one of the best dudes on the team. Want to see him have a lot of success in any walk of life he chooses to. Corey York, yeah, I do think Jamari plays on Saturday. There was an update today that Cedric Von Prun Granger spoke to the media today, and he said that he thought that Jamari Salyer has looked very good in practice. And folks, Jamari has been on the shelf for several weeks now, giving Broderick Jones a chance to get his feet wet and also as well. Lots of good questions as well. They're going to be a core of these guys that will come back, I think, in the let me see. Kale Stone has a question about Burden and Stewart. Well, first of all, Cole Spear and Denalyn Morissette are going to tantalize folks kind of the way that A.D. Mitchell and Lad McConkey have this year. Kind of seriously underrated. You throw in Dylan Bell as well. Denalyn Morissette, folks. Denalyn Morissette, the guy out of North Cobb, another brilliant senior year. I think he's probably rated way too low. I think he's probably one of the top 15 receivers in the country, maybe one of the top 10, top 15 receivers in the country. I think he will do very well and push the starting lineup quickly push the two deep quickly once he gets to Georgia. Daniel Luke Standridge, I think Georgia's going to have the ability to do whatever it wants with either an Oklahoma State or a Michigan. You know, one of the things, folks, I hope you guys have been watching a lot of the big box networks, because there's a good possibility that an Oklahoma State, a Michigan, an Alabama, a Cincinnati, all these schools could lose. And what in the world would happen with the college football playoff rankings if all of those things happened? Probably that's a way if all those schools lost. That's a way for a 2-loss Alabama to get back in that thing. Notre Dame to get back in that thing. Would be very interesting if anarchy reigns and you've got Georgia as a perfect 13-0 with a lot of 1 losses or 2-loss teams, along with the Cincinnati, schools like that in the penultimate Final Four as well. Guys, it has been another Before the Hedges. Thanks to you for joining us. Thanks again to Kroger for all they do, sponsoring all of our programs and platforms here on DogNation.com. Again, this becomes a podcast on Spotify, on the Apple Podcast platform, on SoundCloud as well. Hope you guys subscribe to that or think about subscribing to that. You guys are so inclined. If you heard anything you liked today, I know you didn't see Peaches. I know you didn't see our lit up tree. We'll probably have the tree ready for you guys next week. But I hope you learned a lot about recruiting. If so, maybe consider sharing it or giving this a like across your social pages as well. Tell a friend about Before the Hedges, where they have great guests, where they have a lot of guys, where we have a host that is so roll with it. They'll even answer questions about his hair if that's what the folks want to talk about. I'm Jeff Sintel. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your interest. I want to thank you for being here for another Wednesday night on Before the Hedges. And be blessed. And I'll see you guys again real soon on the pages of DogNation.com. God bless you, everybody. And we'll see you on Saturday. And we'll see you on Thursday at Marla's.